I feel now more optimistic about the prospects for slowing the world down a bit today than I did even a few years ago when I started researching this subject and started looking at writing my book. Because since the book has come out, the response has been extraordinary. I mean, I remember Googling the idea of slow movement on Google, searching for it 4 or 5 years ago, and you came up with nothing. Nobody talked about a slow movement. There was slow food and slow cities, but the idea of a general, broad, slow movement didn't exist. You Google it now, and depending on the day, sometimes you get almost 1 million hits. And I think it's extraordinary how this idea of slow, particularly this very useful English word, slow, that everybody everywhere understands, has penetrated the popular culture, and people are flying the flag of slow and are feeling that slow is not a dirty word, that you don't have to be ashamed or afraid to be slow. On the contrary, that slow is good, that slow has a role to play in the 21st century. And really, I think, in essence, that's what this slow movement is about breaking the taboo against slowing down and giving people the tools and the courage, as well as the license and the permission to slow down, to put on the brakes. And that's really why I wrote the book. I wrote it also for a personal reason, which is that I was myself a speedaholic, someone who was always going fast, always trying to do things as quickly as possible. And I realized one day that this was backfiring on me, and it was when I used to read, I still do, I used to read bedtime stories to my son, and I just used to go into his room at the end of the day, and I could not slow down. You know, I'd be speed reading Snow White, and we were always fighting. He'd say, you know, why are there only 3 dwarves in Snow White tonight? What happened to Grumpy? And we were always at loggerheads, and so what should have been the most relaxed, the most intimate, the most tender, the most magic moment of the day when a dad sits down to read a story to his little boy became, in our family, a war, you know, a battle between my speed and his slowness. And this went on until I caught myself speed reading a newspaper article with time-saving tips for fast people like me to go even faster. And one of those tips talked about a series of books called the 1-Minute Bedtime Story. And, you know, Snow White in 60 seconds. And it was a ridiculous idea, but I read those words and I thought, you know, hallelujah, what a great idea. I'm going to get the whole set FedEx to me from Amazon tomorrow. But my next thought was very different. It was like being in those cartoons when a light bulb goes on over your head, and I suddenly thought, whoa, you know, does it really come to this? Am I really prepared to fob off my son with a soundbite at the end of the day? And that for me was the turning point, the moment of truth. And I knew then that I needed to slow down. I needed to understand my own addiction to speed, and I needed to conquer it. And I guess I set off like any, I'm a journalist and a writer, and I began investigating around the world. And what I found was that things are changing, and that I'm not alone. That more and more people now are slowing down and finding that they live better in every single way imaginable. I can certainly tell you from my own life that slowing down works. I still have an exciting life. I have moments of speed. I live in London, which is a city of incredible energy. I work in the media with deadlines, and I travel. You know, I like speed, but I've also learned to slow down, to love slowness, to feel comfortable slowing down, to strike that balance between fast and slow. And it's made a huge difference to me. I feel I have a lot more energy because I'm not tired from going fast all the time. I take more pleasure from everything I do because I'm in the moment, engaged with what I'm doing, instead of thinking about doing 3 things at the same time or worrying about what I need to do next. My relationships are stronger because I'm in the moment. I'm not distracted by email or phone. I'm listening to people. I'm with them. I give them enough time. And, you know, I'm a lot more productive at work. I get more done in less time. And that's one of the ironies of slowing down, I think, is that you can often do things more quickly, more efficiently, by doing them more slowly. But for me, the litmus test of slowing down was always going to be bedtime stories, and there everything has changed. You know, I go into my son's room now at the end of the day. I sit there. I don't wear a watch. I switch off the computer so I can't hear the email next door, and I just read to him. I read stories. I don't know how long it takes, and we have amazing conversations, the kind of conversations now we never used to have when I was trying to skip lines and paragraphs and sometimes even whole pages. And my son, I've even got a kind of Hollywood ending to this. When In Praise of Slow first came out, I was getting ready to go on a book tour of the United States, and the taxi was coming to take me to the airport. And I was waiting with my bags, and my son came down with a card that he'd made for me. And he'd stapled together 2 index cards, and inside he'd written, "To Daddy, love Benjamin." And I said, "Wow, that's a really sweet card. Is this a good luck on the book tour card?" And he said, No, this is a card for being the best story reader in the world." And I thought, wow, this slowing down really works. But I have to admit that I slightly spoiled the moment because my next thought was, and I thought this, I didn't say it out loud to him. I thought in my mind, I thought, why didn't you hurry up and say that 6 months ago? I could have ended my story with this anecdote. But that's not very slow, is it? So let's push that second thought to one side and go back to my first thought, which is, wow, this slowing down really works. Thank you very much, and I hope you enjoy In Praise of Slow. Bye-bye.